Welcome to the inaugural broadcast of High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts will be available as free downloads. Visit the archive sections at artistfirst.com. And ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Scott Z, and good evening, high school football fans, and welcome to, as Scott said, the debut broadcast of High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network. I am Jeff Fisher, founder and editor-in-chief of High School Football America, and this is just really an exciting night for everyone at High School Football America as we kick off a brand new show that will air 52 weeks a year, every Thursday night from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And to give you a little bit of history of how this show came into being, I think that would be good. We'll talk a little bit about highschoolfootballamerica.com, which I created in 2009. I was writing 52 blogs at that time. They were all called the High School Football Huddle, and the Huddle, which still exists, reached about 1.5 million page views in the first couple of years. So that's when my partner and I, Trish Hoffman, decided to create High School Football America to be the central repository for all that is high school football. And 2 years later, High School Football America has traveled America with our video cameras to tell the great story of the great game that we all love. And we've built a pretty good reputation as being the storytellers, and that's what we hope to bring here to the radio show. And with that, we just decided, hey, let's do the radio show and bring it into the mix. Every week, High School Football America will give our listeners interviews with the top players, coaches around this great land, and all the news for the week ahead in the season. And glad that you're along for the ride as we get things kicked off here and get ready for the 2011 season on the Artist First Radio Network. So let's move on to what we have on Show 1 tonight. We'll kick things off with a chat with Brad Igou, head coach of the Barrow Whalers in Barrow, Alaska, and his assistant, Brian Houston. Barrow is the only high school football team north of the Arctic Circle. That's right, pretty far up there. Brad and Brian will join me to talk about the birth of the program 5 years ago, plus talk about the official beginning of the 2011 high school football season that begins next Tuesday, July the 26th. Then we'll head south to talk with Steve Spiewak. He is the senior national high school football writer for Max Preps, and Steve will join me to talk about the upcoming season, including his preseason top 25 Early Contenders Poll. In the second half hour, we'll chat with Brandon Sheppard, the executive director of the National Select 7-on-7 Championships, being held as we speak this weekend in Hoover, Alabama. 32 teams from 13 states have gathered down south to determine the top team in one of the country's premier passing tournaments. And we'll close things up with a conversation with Scott Young, head football coach at West Rowan High School in Mount Ulla, North Carolina. Young and his Falcons enter this season with the longest active win streak in the country, 46 straight wins, and West Rowan has won 3 straight North Carolina 3A championships. Time to take a break and get ready to kick things off with our first interviews. When we come back, we'll be heading north to Alaska to welcome in the start of the 2011 season above the Arctic Circle in Barrow, Alaska, with Brad Igou and Brian Houston of the Barrow Whalers football program. That's when we return on High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
You are listening to High School Football America on the Artist First World Radio Network. Let's send things back to your host, Mr. Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Scott Z. Yes, high school football is upon us. The season kicks off next Tuesday, July 26th, when Alaska's 31 teams hit the practice field. So for all you old-timers, I guess Johnny Horton sang it best. Let's head north to Alaska to the 49th state to celebrate the return of high school football. And time to welcome into the show Brad Igou, the first-year head coach at Barrow, the Barrow Whalers in Barrow, Alaska. Brad is joined by Brian Houston, his assistant on the staff. And for those of you that don't know, Barrow is the only school playing 11-man football above the Arctic Circle, about 4,000 residents in the North Slope town. That's one of the northernmost cities in the world. Program started in 2006. After its first year, the NFL Jacksonville Jaguars came to the rescue for some poor field conditions in Barrow, and that polar climate was turned into a artificial turf from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're going to talk about a lot of things here. So without further ado, let's welcome in Brad Igou and Brian Houston to the show. Welcome, coaches.
Good evening.
How you doing, Josh? We're excited to have you. I've been kind of following the story from afar, so it's great to have you on the show. And Brian, you've been involved since the birth of the team. Brad, You're the first-year head coach, but you've been there for 4 of the 5 years. So let's first start with Brian on the history side of things, and fill us in on how the school and the community came together to decide that a football team was needed back in 2006. And I know it was more than just the desire to watch football in the community. So why was it started, Brian?
Well, actually, the superintendent at the time, Trent Blankenship, who went to the school, to the high school, and they took a survey trying to find out activities and what the kids wanted at school. And out of that survey came the kids put down that they wanted a football program. And so from what I understood, they had some monies that they could put towards it. That was for athletics. And so they started the program. They took the money and started the program up there. So
it's as simple as that. Just a few minor details had to be filled in. Brad, let's talk about, you were an assistant for 4 years and now the new head coach. How have you seen the program grow since its inception?
Well, first of all, I'd like to talk about how we got the field. The ESPN special kind of created a lot of buzz about the program. We had a wonderful lady named Kathy Parker who took it upon herself, along with the Barstow Trail coaches and program. And then that's when the Jacksonville Jaguars got involved. But anyway, it was basically it all came down to Kathy Parker's insistence and just incredible energy to get the field bought and shipped up there. And that's, to me, that's how the program started and how it's starting to grow. It also, in conjunction with our junior high program, we finally got the feeder program working, due to help Steve Gillespie, and it's just getting bigger and better every year.
Well, that's
really enjoying the benefits.
Well, that's good to hear, and I'm going to ask you both this question here, and I am talking with Brad Igou, the head coach at Barrow High School in Alaska, and Brian Houston, and I'll start with you, Brian, as we go back and forth here. What were some of the biggest challenges? Like Brad just said, the field made a big difference, but what were some of the challenges early on? Do you remember them?
Well, I can tell you, first of all, we didn't have a place to play, so identifying a piece of land that was, big enough for a football field was one of the challenges, and we identified that, which was a dirt field right outside of town, close to. We have a small college named Illisaga College that was there. Was one of them. The other was that these kids had never played football before in their life, so that you would see them in the streets playing football, two-hand touch, but none of them had played, football with uniforms and equipment and stuff like that. So teaching them the skills, and we all know that there's a lot of skill and technique involved in playing football. So that was one of the difficult things. But there were many little hurdles, not having referees and everything we did from the ground up. We got people certified, and a lot of work went into it.
Well, it's definitely from scratch. So Brad, let's address the challenge of teams. You don't necessarily have high schools around you. So how big of a challenge is that? And not only from a standpoint of getting it scheduled, but making sure that you get there and to when you have an away game, or they get there when you have a home game.
Well, a lot of that's we're trying to grow the sport in the state of Alaska, and the problem with our situation is we're 750 miles from the hub, which is basically Anchorage, and then you drive from Anchorage, or you may fly into Fairbanks and you drive everywhere else. And then it's the logistics of flying, it's the logistics of getting tickets and stuff for the teams to come up, because with our situation, there's so many seats that are bought each time a team comes up, and the same when we go down. You're talking about getting the kids ready to fly. You're talking about getting vehicles. You're driving. Sometimes it's hotels. Sometimes you're staying in a school. I mean, those are all things that a lot of people don't have to deal with. Usually you just get on the bus, you go play the game, you come back that night, and it's all good. But to comment quickly on the very beginning, it was actually incredibly fulfilling and comical, too. Because we had kids that never put on a girdle. They're putting it on the wrong way, putting the thigh pads in the wrong way, having to fit the helmets. It was really, really comical. But, we're just trying to make do with what we got.
Well, you camp opening up here next week as we talk, Coach. So let's talk a little bit about this season and specifically you as the new head coach. What kind of thumbprint are you going to put on this program? How different is it going to be from the first 5 years? What are some of the things that you really stress as a head coach?
Well, first of all, it's been a seamless process. It really has. Mark Voss did a fantastic job. He just decided he didn't want to do it anymore. She wanted somebody in the building to take over. I've had a little experience. So what I want to try to accomplish, we've had a lot of success. I mean, we really have. I mean, the first season we had one victory. From that point on, we've been in the playoffs. In fact, we should have been in the state championship game the second year. So we've had success, but what I would like to do is create a more disciplined, committed team culture. Brian will attest to this. This is something we've been working on for quite a while, and that's one of the things I want to accomplish. The other thing is we have a ton of mental mistakes and penalties and stuff that we need to take care of. As far as offense and defense, both sides of the ball, I mean, we've been up and down a little bit offensively, but I think we need to be more balanced. Defensively, really, we've been very aggressive from day one, and we'll continue to do that because nobody really makes us pay for it. So that's pretty much my team concept right there. I just want to create that team culture where we're more disciplined, more committed, and that way we can get to the next level.
And who are some of those key players that hopefully can get you to that next level this season?
You know what? We have a bunch of kids. We got a lot of young kids coming in from the junior high, but the bulk of the kids that are going to help us are juniors and seniors. On offense, we've got Colin Long, who's our long threat, probably has the best hands on the team. Eddie Benson is an outstanding athlete. He's our quarterback. On the offensive line, we got Nate and Darius Samula. Coach, help me out here with the last name.
Samula. Yeah.
There you go. Trace Hudson is a force. He's also a receiver. Jacob Harris is one of our kids as a running back. We're blessed with size. We're blessed with good athletes. We're not blessed with a ton of speed, but these are the kids who are going to get it done for us. As far as defense goes, Nate Samuel, he's my middle linebacker. He's the glue that keeps us, going. Trace Hudson is our outside linebacker. You notice they're the same kids because we play both ways a lot.
Yep.
Another kid for us defensively is Xavier Edwards, who's going to be a stud as far as I'm concerned at cornerback. Eddie, James Snow, who will be a junior, is one of our defensive ends. Ben Jones, defensive lineman. And we had an outstanding freshman that started for us last year, which was the first time. Jesse Sanchez will be a standout as well.
So you had mentioned that you felt that being in the state championship game should have happened last year. Can I assume then that some of the goals for this year is to kind of take it to that notch and get to that championship game?
Well, let me back up just a little bit. Really and truly, the third year of the program, we were in the semifinals. We got beat by Kodiak by one touchdown, which was really a mental mistake. It came on a penalty. The last 2 years we've been in the playoffs, and because of the way they have our leagues set up, we ended up getting beat by Kenai the last 2 years in the playoffs. Well, Kenai is it's almost 4 times bigger than we are. So they did change that around this year. So we have a large school, medium school, and a small school. See, we're only 200 kids, and we were competing against schools that had 600 and 800 kids. So this year, I think the outlook is very, very bright. We've got a bunch of seniors, and we should be competing for the state title at the small school level.
Before I let you guys go here, I'd love to get both of your takes, and we'll start with you, Brian, since you've been a little quiet here as I was asking Brad the questions. How would you kind of assess the first 5 years of the program? How have expectations met what, the reality met the expectation from years ago?
Well, one of the things that I didn't mention early on was that, the team came out, this also came out of because we had a high school dropout rate, which has actually went down now. Kids are staying in school, and actually we won the GPA award, so academically I think it's definitely helped our kids progress and do some great things. As far as football itself, I think it's done wonders. For us, the whole process of getting the field and what that took to make it happen, it started a little fire in our community on that. You know what? We can achieve much bigger and better things. And over the 5 years, these kids have progressed to where we are right now. I will tell you that, 5 years ago, it was hard to get a kid to go into a weight room and to work out on his own time. Today, we have 20 or so of our kids going to the gym and working out on their own and taking care of that responsibility, which I think is a great thing, and it's a great start for us. So, and things are aligned for us to do great things this season. 5 home games, we couldn't ask for more than that, so it's great.
Good. So, Coach Igou, how would you assess the 5 years of the program so far?
Well, we were taking baby steps. Like I said, we had one victory the first year. The second year, we really should have made the playoffs, but didn't. The last 3 years, we've been in the hunt, been in the mix. We've got a ton of seniors this year. So our goals really are, we'd like to win the conference. If not, we come in second, whatever. We'd like to have a home playoff game. And then I think we really got a shot at winning the state title, which is attributed to we have a fantastic coaching staff. The community is behind us, and the kids definitely are showing a lot more commitment. And, that's what it takes to succeed, because Barrow is very competitive in all sports. I mean, they're used to winning. So the winning culture is there. We just need to put the other pieces together to make it happen on the football field, which we're there. We're close.
And it sounds like if you do get that opportunity to play for a state championship, there might be one big party in the town there. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your schedules to join us here on our first show, and best of luck this season, coaches.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. That was Brad Igou, the head football coach at Barrow High School in Barrow, Alaska. His longtime assistant, Brian Houston, also joining us. He's been there since the beginning of the program. And just get to learn a little bit about football played at an unusual spot above the Arctic Circle. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the national scene as we have Steve Spiewak from Max Preps join us to talk about some of the national contenders in his top 25 preseason poll. That and more when we come back. This is High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
This is the inaugural broadcast of High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network. Let's send things back now to your host, Mr. Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Scott Z. Still ahead on the show tonight, Brandon Sheppard, the executive director of the National Select 7-on-7 going on in Hoover, Alabama this weekend. And then we'll have Scott Young, the head coach at West Rowan High School, North Carolina. They're actually at the Select 7-on-7, and they will enter the 2011 season with the longest active win streak in America at 46 games. Now, though, let's take a call from Steve Spiewak, the senior high school football writer at Max Preps, maxpreps.com. Earlier in June, Steve got America talking about the season ahead with the release of his preseason top 25. They call it the Early Contenders Poll, and Don Bosco Prep gets the bullseye at the top. They were the 2009 national champs, and they're look to do big things this year. So, Steve, welcome to the program.
It's always a pleasure, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we love what you guys do at Max Preps. I mean, you really do a great job of putting things in perspective, and you have fun with the poll. And last time I had you on the show, we talked about this, but for new listeners, I'd love to get everybody charged up on how you develop the top 25 and put all of that pressure on your shoulders.
Yeah, first of all, to your point, we do have fun with it. It's something that we work hard at and something that we take seriously, but at the end of the day, these are high school kids. This is June when we do the ranking, and so it's hard to put a whole lot of stock in any preseason ranking, particularly high school. But the way that we approach it is really kind of from the ground up. We reach out to our network of writers, local media members. We'll send surveys out to coaches, and we'll try to get a feel for how teams stack up in their respective states and regions. And then from there, once we have a sense for the top teams in different areas, that's when the fun really begins, when trying to slot in, a top team from State A compared to a top team from State B, where would they rank nationally? So, we start locally and then kind of build up to the national level and do the best we can coming out with the top 25.
And as I said to you before, you become public enemy number one for just fun with a lot of people. But it creates great crosstalk, I guess, as you go through the season. But let's go through some of the poll. As I mentioned, Bosco Prep out of New Jersey, another loaded program. Why do you feel they have a shot to win another national championship?
Well, they entered the 2010 season with expectations that were pretty low because they graduated essentially all of their team from that infamous 2009 season where they were the top team in the country in our estimation. So a lot of people didn't really expect them to do a whole lot, and they just were on a mission and finished undefeated. They beat some really good teams. They beat a Gilman team from Maryland that was pretty impressive. They beat Bergen Catholic in the playoffs, and so St. Peter's Prep. So they had just a phenomenal season with basically first-year players who are all back this upcoming year. They have a terrific coach, Greg Toll, and, granted, New Jersey does not have the same level of football culture that you would get, kind of that Friday night atmosphere that you would probably see more typically in Texas and areas of the South, but what Don Bosco Prep does have going for them is they've really got their program up and running now to the point where kids from all over, not only New Jersey, but New York and Connecticut, and that whole New York metropolitan area, which is huge in terms of population, they're getting top players from all different cities across that area. And so the talent is certainly there. The coaching staff is phenomenal. And when you put those two pieces together, it just made sense for them to be number one in our poll.
Yeah, with all those factors, it's not hard for them to just reload. Let's go through the top five real quickly for the listeners. Prep at the top, and then you've got Armwood from Florida, De La Salle from California at number 3, St. Thomas Aquinas at number 4, and Allen, Texas at number 5. A lot of familiar names in that top 5 section there. How much weight, when you're developing the poll, do you put into that tradition that is, a good program?
Well, we don't let that factor in too much. I think where it factors in, actually, is just in the coaching staff. If you have a coach that has demonstrated a track record of success and a track record of delivering, I think that's a big factor. Coaching, I think, is the biggest variable in high school football. If you have a great coach, you'll win football games. Talent in high school football is not really correlated to success, contrary to what some people think. You don't need a ton of high D1 kids to win, and there are plenty of teams loaded with major Division I players that do not win. And so, coaching is a factor, but, the success of programs last year, it really depends on what they have coming back. Not every team that was a state champion or had a great season last year is up high in the rankings, but if teams succeeded well last year and they had a core nucleus back, there was stability in the coaching ranks, that's usually grounds for consideration for a national ranking.
Sure. Two teams that have earned that respect over the course of the decade, or decades, I guess, in some cases, would be you got De La Salle at number 3, St. Thomas Aquinas at 4. They're actually going to play on September the 23rd, head-to-head, and then St. Thomas has a real tough schedule. They also have Prattville from Alabama, and Prattville's number 6 in your poll. So tell me about those games as it relates to St. Thomas Aquinas and how, if they come out really hard, that could set up a pretty good run to a national championship as well.
Yeah, if Aquinas defeats both De La Salle and Prattville, that's a really, really solid resume for a national number 1 ranking. But if you remember in 2009, they had a pretty impressive run through the regular season, and then they faltered late in the playoffs in the semifinals to Manatee. And so, those wins over De La Salle and Prattville won't mean much if in December they slip up in a loaded playoff bracket. So, those games against De La Salle and Prattville are huge. I think the De La Salle Aquinas game is probably the biggest game of this season. I think it's just so many interesting storylines and such an interesting matchup of two private programs that have kind of built up in opposite corners of the country. But again, if they come out and win those games, but then have a hiccup in the playoffs, then that's not really going to mean a whole lot.
That's absolutely correct. You can go to my website, my blog, and I have Steve's poll up there, and he's got the top 25. Give me a team that's on the outside that didn't make the top 25 that people should keep their eyes on this year.
Well, I'll give you two. The more that I've read and the more that I've talked to people this summer, One team that I really like, surprisingly, this is kind of ironic, is a small private school in Fort Lauderdale. So they've kind of grown up in the shadows of Aquinas, but it's the university school. Their coach, Roger Harriet, is a Aquinas graduate, and they were 1 point away from a state title last year. They lost in triple overtime in the state final. But they have just a ton of talent, and they've done a really good job, assembling a really, really solid squad, and they have a lot of starters coming back from next year. And Florida is a state, there are some states like this that small schools can really compete with bigger schools, and Florida is a state where that seems to happen pretty frequently, where you get these small school powers, and they can sometimes dethrone these larger powerhouses. And so university school is a program that I'm definitely going to watch, because I think they'll be one of the top teams in Florida regardless of class this season. Another school, a small school that is definitely on the national radar, is Buford down in Georgia. I expect them to have a phenomenal season. I think they're probably a heavy, heavy favorite for a state title, and I would not be surprised, even though they're a smaller school in Georgia, for them to make an appearance in our overall national rankings.
Yeah, I had a chance when I was living in Atlanta for a couple of years to check them out. That's the real deal. That's a small community that takes its football very seriously. Before I let you go here, let's just kind of wrap up with a little plug. As I said, I think you guys do a great job, and I'm not saying that because you're on the air here with me now. But it doesn't hurt to say that. But no, tell the listeners a little bit about what's new and exciting at Max Preps for the 2011 season for football.
Well, we are just really, really excited for the season to get here. Putting out the national rankings for us is kind of that turning point where we shift away from the spring and we move forward to the football season. And so we're just going to come out with a whole lot of great preseason coverage. We're actually releasing, on the topic of small schools, we will be releasing a small school national ranking coming soon, where we will look at the top small schools entering the season, so that should be pretty fun. But we plan to have videographers at several hundred games this year. We'll have writers at tons more, and we're just a great resource for stats, video, articles, schedules, results, anything you need in the high school football world. We're the country's largest high school sports website, so definitely check us out.
You do it out, and just a kind of a personal note on what you were talking about with the small schools poll. Back in Pennsylvania, I kind of did that back in the early 90s because I thought it was, the fairest thing to do. And that's a huge thing to happen. I think you're going to see a lot of fun results as far as your readers and that will enjoy that, because I think it gives a whole new meaning to rankings and have fun, because most times those small schools don't get in there. So I applaud you for doing that. That's a smart move.
Well, thanks. And you know what? That's exactly it. We have fun with the rankings. They don't really count much. Your ranking is not going to help you win a state title, but it's kind of fun to recognize these programs, and especially the small schools who a lot of times will get overlooked for overall national rankings.
Well, you do a great job, and I look forward to having you on more regularly, regularly, I should say. The first time you were on the show, we had one of our best listened to shows, so it's always good when you have a national show launch here to get somebody that knows what he's doing, and you certainly do that. So thanks for your time, and look forward to talking to you throughout the season.
Yeah, appreciate the kind words, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That is Steve Spiewak, the senior writer, national writer for high school football at Max Preps. Always doing a great job. Check out the blog. Go to maxpreps.com to keep up and get yourself all suited up for the 2011 season. When we take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to go to Alabama, to Hoover, Alabama, and talk with Brandon Sheppard, the executive director of the National Select 7-on-7. When we come back, this is High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
You are listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network. Now back to your host, Mr. Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Scott Z. Inaugural show going real well. We talked to head coach Brad Igou of the Barrow, Alaska Whalers, and the season starts in Alaska coming up on July 26th, the official start of the 2011 season. Just spoke with Steve Spiewak, the national writer for high school football at Max Preps, and he talked about the top 25. And we were going to have Brandon Sheppard, the executive director of the National Select 7-on-7 on, but he's not answering his phone. But this guy did. He's the head coach of West Rowan, and he's playing in that Select 7-on-7. His name is Scott Young, and he's done quite a job there in Mount Ulla, North Carolina, beginning his 14th season with the Falcons. Last year named the Associated Press Coach of the Year on the Tar Heel State. His teams have won 3 straight 3A state titles and enters the season with 46 straight wins, which is the longest active streak in the nation. Coach, thanks for taking time out of your game there.
No problem. We'd love to do it for you guys. We appreciate everything you guys do for us as well.
Well, we're excited to talk to you. A tiny little town down there, and maybe that's where we start with everything. Because when I spoke to your athletic director, Todd Bell, he's like, "Man, you've got to see this town. It's not a whole lot of anything, but we do play some good football." So for the listeners, explain a little bit about Mount Ulla, North Carolina.
It's unique. It's made up of a bunch of small communities. No real big town, but our fans support our kids and our program like no other, and we've just been blessed to have great players. And I think another big key to our success is the fact that in 13 years as a head coach, I've replaced 5 assistants in that 13 years. So I think that's got a lot to do with it as well.
Well, you need that longevity there and kind of that umbilical cord to bring you through everything. Now, you mentioned some of the things. You've had some great players, but, I mean, what is it that you've instilled since you've taken over 13 years ago? You've got a record of, 135 and 37. You've done some things right. So when you came into the program, what did you do then that made the difference for the next 13 years?
Well, it's just hard work. There are no shortcuts, and we've been blessed because our players respond to it, and we feel like we got a chance to outwork the opponent each and every week, and I think our kids do that, and we take pride in it. That's why we're taking our lumps down here. You mentioned Barrow, Alaska. I wish we had some Barrow, Alaska weather right down here in Hoover right now. But it's hot and it's fun, But, we got to take it to. It was pretty good in that first game, and then we lost a close one in the second game, so we're waiting to play another one. But, hey, we're just out here having a good time, and we'll have some fellowship with our kids. It's team building, but at the same time, we're working and we're getting better.
Well, as you mentioned, you're at the National Select 7-on-7. So, what was the impetus behind going there? Because 7-on-7 is more than just conditioning now. So, as a head coach, how do you approach the 7-on-7 tournaments now?
Well, it's just we play in the summer. I mean, we graduated 4 guys in the secondary last year. One of them went to Georgia Tech, one of them went to West Liberty, one of them went to Catawba College, and another one to Georgia Military. So all 4 of our defensive backs were scholarship players last year. And, we've got to break in a new secondary, so we have perhaps played more tournaments this year than we ever have. So, it was necessary. It was a necessary evil. And I don't mean that 7-and-7s are evil, but we do understand that we make our bread and butter up front with the offensive and defensive line, but I still think it was important for our team to throw as many times as we could this year.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this year's team, and let's just start with the win streak, which has gotten you a lot of notoriety, coming in with the nation's longest at 46 straight, 3 straight titles. Tell me about the pressure on your kids and how you're going to help kind of deflect that and get them ready for 2011.
Well, we inherited this win streak, I believe, in week 10 last year. So we had to finish out the regular season of week 11 with the nation's longest streak, and then we had to win 5 playoff games. And the only way to continue that streak is 1 week at a time. I know that's cliche and all that good stuff, but the only way you can continue the streak is 1 week at a time, and that's what we try to preach to our kids.
Tell us about the kids, the key kids that will be critical if you can get the 4P.
Well, we'll make no bones about it. Our offensive line coach is one of the best around. He's got 4 out of 5 legit offensive linemen. We think our tight end's way above average. Then our defensive line coach is just as strong, and we feel really good about our entire front 4. We feel like they're all college players. They may not be D1 players, but they're all college players. So we think the basics of football is blocking and tackling. And as long as we don't get hurt or anything, I think we'll be able to block most people, and I think we'll be able to tackle most people.
Now, tell us a little bit about a big game that your athletic director was telling me about coming up on September the 10th. You get one of the best in South Carolina. You get South Point. Tell us about that game and how important that is for you to play an interstate game that will, kind of be a little bit for bragging rights, I guess, too.
I agree. I mean, I think it's good for them. I think it's good for us. They're not more than an hour and 20 minutes away. They won the state championship, I think, 2 or 3 years ago in 3A level in South Carolina. They lost to Myrtle Beach in the 3A state title game last year. And, of course, we've been fortunate enough to win 3 straight 3A titles. So, I just think it's going to generate a lot of local interest. It's going to be a Saturday afternoon game. Our local college team is on the road that weekend So with everyone else playing on Friday and the college team out on Saturday, it should be just a great atmosphere for our program and their program, and it'll just be fun.
We're talking with head coach Scott Young of West Rowan High School in North Carolina, playing at the National Select 7-on-7. And I'm happy you took the time out. And I'm going to let you get back to coaching here in a second. But let's just talk finally about the goals for this season. We talked about the win streak. We talked about the state championships. You've said it's a game at a time. But what are the goals that you set for this season?
Well, with our program, we always talk about, we want to win championships. And sometimes that's a county championship. We got 6 county high schools in our county, and we want to win a county championship, we want to win a conference championship, and we want to win a state championship. And that's all we talk to our kids about. Anything less than those 3 goals, we don't consider it fully successful.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time out there. I don't know if you missed your coin flip I heard you talking about a little while ago, but go get back at it at the Select 7-on-7, and we wish you the best of luck in the season.
All right, buddy. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks a lot. That is Scott Young, the head football coach at West Rowan High School in Mount Ulla, North Carolina. They come into the season with 46 straight wins, which is the longest active streak in the nation, and just doing a really great job down there with 3 straight state championships. And you can also check out what's going on with them by going to the website there at the Select 7-on-7. It's Select 7-on-7 at select7on7.com to get all that information. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk with Brandon Sheppard, or we're going to try and connect with him. At least we couldn't before. He is the executive director of the National Select 7-on-7. That and more on High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
It's High School Football America worldwide on the Artist First Radio Network. Now back to your host, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Scott Z. An exciting first show for High School Football America. We've been to Alaska. We've been to Alabama once. We were to New York City for Steve Spiewak from Max Preps, and we're going back down to Alabama for Brandon Sheppard. He's the executive director of the National Select 7-on-7, and he's going to talk a little bit about what Coach Young was just talking about. 32 teams from 13 states. Pool play beginning this afternoon, still going on. And Brandon, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to talk with us a little bit. But this truly is one of the elite 7-on-7 tournaments, so thanks for taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about this. You're powered by Under Armour, which is a great sponsor to have. And let's get our listeners up to speed on how all this developed, because, there are a lot of 7-on-7s around there. It's no longer a local thing. So how did you guys down there turn this into a pretty big national shindig?
Well, I think a lot of luck and good timing on a lot of different things come together, kind of the perfect storm. We had started doing a little bit of a smaller tournament, smaller scale, about 9 years ago with 12 schools that we would select. That's where the name kind of came from, and we invited them to Hoover. And just over time, and I think with the popularity of our high school and the success that we've continued to have here over the past decade or so, we've just been fortunate. We're in a good place with good support from our parents and community. And like I said, I think it's just a perfect storm. And, this 7-on-7 has become very popular. And for some reason, especially with good support from our sponsors like Under Armour, we've been able to stay a little bit ahead of the curve and maybe just produce a little better event, mainly because we have some of the best teams in the country wanting to get into the tournament.
Yeah, well, it doesn't hurt to be first to market on anything, and that's what you definitely have there. And you mentioned the high school. I didn't say it is at Hoover, Alabama. We know Hoover has got a pretty darn good football team. So you mentioned the selection process, that it is part selection, but there's also some qualifying tournaments. So tell us how the 32 teams are gathered in the field right now.
Sure, we have 8 qualifying tournaments around the Southeast with some of our good schools that we've developed great relationships with over the past. And we've also added a couple of tournaments this year that have really grown the event. And, where we wanted to try to always, get the best of the best here. And sometimes it's hard to invite the top 32. So rather than not miss out on somebody that may be flying a little bit under the radar, so to speak, that we don't know about. And we just kept thinking about how can we get those teams that we don't know to come to Hoover. And so the idea of a qualifying tournament and a play-in type program developed, and we're real pleased with that. We have some plans to talk with some additional tournaments out there, after the regular football season, and maybe add a few more qualifiers.
Now, you are just kind of walking away to talk to us here. So tell us about some of the teams that you have playing there this week. And I know you have 4 defending state champs in the field, but tell us who's there and who's caught your eye in the early pool play.
Well, it's been hard to say as an event organizer. I've been trying to get the show on the road, so to speak, and get the tournament started. But, I think Allentown Central Catholic is a team to watch. I think Carver Montgomery, our defending champ from the tournament last year, is one to watch. They were not a state champion, but they have a really good quarterback and some receivers, and they're showing up pretty good today. Of course, the first day of the tournament, there's always a lot of excitement, and it's a long grind, 3-day tournament, and usually the best teams do rise to the top. Hoover started out really well. I think Fayetteville, Arkansas is a team to watch. I think Kenton, Ohio is also a really good team. Grayson, Georgia. So it's really hard to pick out who. I mean, they're all so competitive. Like you mentioned before, our combined record of the 32 teams in the event went 313-88 last regular season.
Wow.
It's really, really impressive. And like you said, we actually have 5 state champions. We picked up Spanish Fort last week.
Okay.
And we also have 4 runners-up. And 25 of the 32 were playoff teams last year.
That is impressive.
We feel this may be our most competitive event that we've ever had.
Well, Allentown Central Catholic, that's from my old stomping grounds, and I know quarterback there, Brandon Nosovich, is a real good one, and I had Matty Mock there at Kenton, you mentioned. I had his father on the show the other week, so I know you got some balls being tossed around in a nice way. Let's kind of wrap up here as we go up against the time with, what's the future hold for the National Select 7-on-7? How can you grow this tournament? What are some of the goals to make it, and like you said, keep it the number one or the premier, whatever you want to call it, out there?
Well, that's just it. I think to hold status quo is, first of all, our first goal, to continue to put together a good event that promotes the teams that are here. 7-on-7 around the country is not getting good press from a lot of different places from time to time when they're using them for recruiting tools and all-star type events, and some people even refer to it as the beginnings of like an AAU league. And we really want to position ourselves in that marketplace as always having a team event so that we can put together something that will motivate the players to stay with their own high school, to work with their own coaches, and have that team building and individual skill development within the team concept. So that's our whole approach. We're never going to have an all-star team or an AAU team in our events. We're always going to promote these schools above the event and put together something that the coaches can really want to get, to play in and participate in.
Well, that just made me smile because that's one of my soapbox issues. I'm glad to hear that you guys have the focus where it should be. I'm not going to bash other ones, but I think you're right. The sport needs to stay at the team level, and these all-star things and recruiting just kind of damage it. It's fun to watch, so congratulations on putting together a great tournament, and best of luck with everything this weekend, and try and get some rest and cool down there.
Thank you, Jeff, and good luck to you.
Okay, thanks a lot. We really appreciate it. That is Brandon Sheppard. Yep, thank you. Brandon Sheppard, the Executive Director of the National Select 7-on-7, and the first show is blown by pretty quickly. I'd like to thank our guest tonight, Brad Igou, the head football coach at Barrow High School in Alaska, as Alaska kicks off the 2011 season next Tuesday, July the 26th. We were joined also by Brian Houston, who is one of Brad's assistants, who's been there from the beginning. I want to thank Steve Spiewak from Max Preps for taking time to talk about the top 25, the preseason top 25, and Scott Young, who's also down there in Alabama at Hoover, Alabama. He's the head coach at West Rowan High School. Scott's team playing in that 7-on-7 and enters the season as a 3-time state champ in North Carolina with 46 straight wins, which is the longest active streak in America. Want to thank our sponsors for the first time out. Want to thank the Rudy Awards, Blitz Group, which handles all of our media, and also the NHSCA for helping out along the way with some publicity and getting the show out there for everyone. Hope you all enjoyed it. Again, High School Football America is a year-round radio show now on the Artist First Radio Network. We are on the air every Thursday night from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you have any questions or some stories you want to suggest to me, please email me at jeff@highschoolfootballamerica.com, and, of course, the website is highschoolfootballamerica.com. Well, that'll do it for week number 1 and show number 1. Look forward to coming back next week. I can tell you that we're going to have Matty Mock on from Kenton High School. He is going after the national record for passing yardage and touchdowns by a high school quarterback. So come on back next Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. That'll do it for now. I'm Jeff Fisher. You've been listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.